So somewhere in Zimbabwe, a woman is making a decision that will end her life. She doesn't know this yet, but she has 4 children, and she has realized that the future that she can offer them is not enough. It's actually not even close. Her name is Miriam Rusike, and just like any other mother, she hopes to provide a secured future for her 4 children. So because of this, she has done a kind of math that millions of Africans or people from the global south are forced to do. The math goes like this. There's no visa waiting for her. There's no plane ticket to America for a mother with no wealth and no connections in the right places. Every legal door to a better life has been closed, has been locked, and has been built specifically to keep her out. So she makes a choice only a mother can understand. She chooses to leave her children. She chooses to leave the people that she loves the most in the entire world so that one day she'll be able to provide everything for them. She then kisses her 4 children goodbye. We don't know what she told them. Maybe she promised that she'll be back soon. Maybe she promised that she would also bring them to this particular country. Maybe she promised them that she would send for them. Whatever she said, those were among the last words her children would ever hear from her. Her journey starts in Cape Town. She isn't alone. 2 other people travel with her. I'm not sure if the other 2 were also Zimbabweans, but according to the rumor, they were Zimbabweans. So imagine they were in Cape Town and their plan was to go to America. And everyone knows how difficult it is to get a visa to America. Just by what I've said, you can ascertain that they were not choosing the legal route. They were choosing something that very few Zimbabweans have ever tried. So their first flight is to Bolivia, which is a very small country in Central America, but then they're turned away at the border, so they try again. This time they fly to Brazil. Remember, they're supposed to make their way to America. So even though they have been allowed into Brazil, their journey is far from over. So from Brazil, they have to take bus after bus. So they head north through Brazil, through Peru, through Ecuador. These are weeks of sleeping upright in cramped seats, of being strangers in countries whose languages you have never even heard. And then they cross into Colombia and their road ends. This is not a figure of speech. I mean, literally, the road ends. The longest road network on earth, the one that runs from Alaska to Argentina, simply stops here. And in the silence of where that road should be, there is a jungle. The single deadliest stretch of land on any migration route in the entire world. And it is called the Darian Gap. You see, there's nowhere around it. To go through it, Miriam and her 2 friends have to walk through it. For 5 days, she walks through a place where the rivers drown people, where the cliffs swallow people, where armed men hunt the desperate, where the jungle itself rots the wounds on your skin. 5 days where many who enter this place never come out. But as for Miriam and her 2 friends, they actually make it. They manage to arrive in Panama on foot. She was obviously exhausted, broke, probably sick, and almost certainly traumatized, but at least she was alive. But remember, Panama is not the goal. America is, so they have to keep going. So they pass through Costa Rica, they pass through Honduras, they pass through Guatemala, country after country falling behind her until she finally reaches Mexico, the country that shares the border with her goal, America. She is finally close. Her dream is finally coming alive. But unfortunately, on the 25th of June 2024, in a small town in Mexico called Osaka, not in a jungle, not in the hands of the cartel, but here in a home stretch, with America almost close enough to touch, Miriam passes on. She never managed to cross that last border, and her children never got the better life that she had walked across the planet to build for them. And when I came across the story in 2024, her family were attempting to raise $8,000 in order to repatriate her body back to Zimbabwe. So the reason why I am telling her story is because it is not just her. Thousands of Africans have actually lost their lives attempting to reach America by foot. They have walked the same path that Miriam walked. They have vanished into this same jungle, dying the same invisible deaths. In this particular jungle, the Darién Gap is the topic of our YAP session today. My name is Darién and welcome to my channel. If you're interested in the topics that I cover here, please do not hesitate to click that subscribe button and the bell so that you can be alerted every single time I upload a video. So there's this road called the Pan-American Highway. It is arguably the greatest road on the planet. It is nearly 30,000 kilometers of continuous tarred road that runs from the frozen edge of Alaska all the way to the tip of Argentina. You could, in theory, almost drive through two continents. Almost. Because there's exactly one place on Earth where this particular road, this monument of human determination, simply gives up. It is right here between the border of Colombia and Panama, where there is 90 kilometers of nothingness. And when I say nothingness, I don't mean that nothing is there. I mean that there are no roads, no bridges, no power line, no cell phone tower. No human actually lives here because of how difficult the terrain is. Engineers have wanted to close this gap for over a century. They have wanted to connect Central America with South America. But unfortunately, they've never been able to do that because the land itself and the terrain won't allow it. This is the Darién Gap, and it is 575,000 hectares of jungle, so hostile that humans have failed to tame it for more than 500 years. In actual fact, this is one of the wettest places in the entire world. So the Colombian side is a flooded delta, and the Panama side has mountains nearly 1,900 meters high, and the rainforest is so dense that the sun itself barely touches the ground. The temperature itself is above 35 degrees Celsius and the humidity is suffocating, and the wildlife is actively trying to kill you. There are venomous snakes, crocodiles and rivers and clouds of mosquitoes that are carrying malaria and yellow fever. So what this actually means is that there is no road, there is no signal, there is no clean water, there is no food, there is no doctor. If something happens to you, there is no rescue. No one is coming to get you. So if you die crossing the Darién Gap, you're on your own. Animals are going to feast on your body. You see, in this particular place, no one lives here. Not because people have not tried, but the jungle just will not permit it. And yet, over the past 10 years, it is estimated that more than 1.7 million people have successfully crossed the Darién Gap. We're talking about people that have managed to reach the other side. We cannot account for people that have actually disappeared in the Darién Gap. And as for the number of Africans that have actually crossed, there is no record of that. So we do not know how many Africans have disappeared in the Darién Gap. So obviously no one wants to pass through such difficult terrain. The Darién Gap is not the goal. It is actually the wall. It is the one obstacle that is standing between North America and South America. And for people traveling by land, there is no way around it. It is the only land bridge connecting two continents. Full stop. They obviously cannot travel by air to the US because they'll be deported upon arrival, and they understand this. So the only way is to arrive there illegally, and you have to go by land. So even being one of the most dangerous migration paths in the entire world, people are willing to risk their lives because of how difficult their home countries are. I mean, Miriam chose danger over safety because she simply wanted her children to eat. And I keep emphasizing children because majority of the people that cross the Darién Gap are parents, and they're trying to create a better future for their children. So you might be thinking how Miriam actually got this information and how she planned this journey. So there are actually agents, people that you have to pay, that will accompany you and take you through the Darién Gap, that can show you the way so that you don't get lost. Because remember, this is pure jungle. There are no roads here. Then you have to pay for your own flight tickets to Bolivia or Brazil. So then when you get to Brazil or to any other country in South America where you are allowed in, you have to travel by land to Colombia, to a certain town. This Colombian town is called Necoclí. Then when you arrive here, you have to pay around $40 for a ferry across the Gulf of Uraba to a tiny town that is known as Akandi or Capugana. This is where the jungle starts. So like I mentioned, the Darién Gap is one of the most dangerous places in the entire world, and it is not only because of animals or because of diseases or because it is difficult terrain, but because it is controlled by a certain paramilitary cartel that is known as the Gulf Clan. So because there was no military in the area and it was not being controlled by either of the governments, paramilitary drug cartels have taken over. So you can't just make your way through the Darién Gap without paying them something. So for you to even enter this very unforgiving jungle, you have to pay something like $180 to around $330 per person just for permission. It is believed that they will give you guides that will take you through the shortest route so that you don't get lost. So you don't travel by yourself with a guide, but you have to wait for others. And sometimes it can even be up to 200 or 300 migrants that are walking through at the same time. So obviously they have to carry things on their back. If they're going to be walking for so many days, they need to have something to carry on their back, which is the most efficient way of carrying something for long distances. And then most people carry food for 2 to 5 days. They have to also carry water for a journey that can last sometimes up to 2 weeks. Currently, the water that runs through these rivers in the Darién Gap is very unclean. There's a lot of bacteria in it. So they advise you to carry your own water. So it is not just the bacteria that you have to be afraid of. It's not just the crocodiles. It's not just the mosquitoes. It is not just the diseases, but it is also these people that are controlling this area. Because there's been reports that some of these men were actually sexually assaulting the women that were making their way across. The jungle itself is so brutal to an extent that they actually have a motto: you don't wait for anyone. If you find that one of your friends is missing, you continue. You don't wait. You don't look. You don't search. This is the danger that Miriam Rusike had to endure for 5 days so that she could just build a better life for her children. When survivors finally stagger out of the jungle, they will come across this village. This is a village in Panama and it is called Bajo Chiquito. This is the first sign of the outside world in days. I'm sure that when Miriam got here, she thought that her journey was almost over. So because thousands of people actually cross into this particular village every single month, the UN Refugee Agency, which is the UNHCR, the UNICEF, the Red Cross, the Doctors Without Borders, have created reception centers like this one. They are funded heavily by the European Union and they offer first aid, basic medical care, food screening, clean water, and support for survivors of sexual violence. The scale itself is almost unbelievable. Between 2021 and 2025, Doctors Without Borders carried out more than 163,000 medical consultations on this particular corridor, and they reportedly treated more than 1,900 victims of sexual violence in the Darién Gap. So these NGOs are only able to deal with maybe the physical scars, the abuse that they've endured. They can only give them temporary food. They can give them temporary shelter. But remember, these people are on a journey. Their goal was not Panama. Their goal is the US. So they have to continue the journey. After the NGO centers, people still continue on their way to Mexico. And then from Mexico, they cross the border illegally into the US. So obviously, because of the difficulty of her journey, her body gave in and she could not make it. So the Darién Gap was a concern for the American government because all these people were heading to America and all these people were illegal. There was no way to vet them. But under the new Trump administration, the US suspended asylum programs and accelerated deportations and sent an unmistakable signal to the entire world. And because of this, in the first 3 months of Trump being president, only 2,831 people crossed the Darién Gap, and that was a 98% collapse. And by June of 2025, it was recorded that only 10 crossings had happened on the Darién Gap. But according to the Doctors Without Borders, so many people that had crossed the Darién Gap or were almost crossing the Darién Gap are now stuck in this country. These are people that have come from across the world that have no money to go back to their countries. They're now just stuck in these villages because they cannot proceed to America and they cannot go back. So Miriam lost her life when she had covered over 90% of the brutal journey to America. And unfortunately, history is brutally clear on one thing. When desperation is large enough, there's no jungle, there's no wall that can ever stop it. So I want you to think about this. How many of our Zimbabwean brothers and sisters, they might not be a lot, obviously, but just think about it. there could be a lot of our Zimbabwean people, a lot of our African brothers and sisters that disappeared in this particular stretch of jungle. And because there is no one that actually controls this jungle, we will never know what happened to these people. Is it not possible that some of the people that are being recorded as missing attempted this journey and they failed to make it? The only reason why we know about Miriam's situation is because she traveled with 2 other people. Just imagine how many that traveled by themselves just died and were just buried, and right now there's no trace of them. Miriam did not choose the jungle because she was reckless. She saw an opportunity. She saw a better life for herself and for her children. And unfortunately, for most of the countries in the global south and in third world countries where there are no jobs, where the economies are not doing so well, this is going to continue. People are going to keep finding new ways to migrate to better countries. Not being able to feed your children, not being able to school your children, not being able to clothe your children is very, very difficult. And many people are willing to endure the most brutal journeys so that they could have an opportunity to build a better future for their children. My name is Darién, and thank you so much for watching my video. See you in the next one. Ciao.